Hello people of YouTube, my name is Matthew, and today we're taking a look at 3 NECA Godzilla King of the Monsters figures, specifically version 1, 2, and 3 of Godzilla. But wait, in case if you haven't looked at the title correctly, you'd realize it says 2014. That's because we're including this guy. I knew from the very start I couldn't do it without this guy, so we're going to see which of these 4 figures is the definitive 6-inch legendary Godzilla made by NECA. Round 1 is sculpt and paint, and we're going to talk about 2014 here. The overall plastic is made of a dark charcoal gray, blackish plastic with a blue wash to simulate a lot of detail and to bring out the detail in a lot of kind of glossy looking places. On his stomach, he features the signature gray underbelly with it still going around the tail. The head uses a crocodile eyes look kind of scheme to it with a slit for his eye and a yellow eyeball. His mouth is very well painted with a lot of pinks, purples, kind of in the gums. Mine's kind of dusty, but that's probably because mine's been on the shelf for like ever. So sorry if my camera is kind of unfocusing. But you can definitely see all the nice crisp detail. I should probably wash that though. This is really dusty. Looking at the arms, you can see all that rich detail. The spines is where it kind of falls flat because all we just see is like this mellow, flat detail, which when you rub your finger on it, it doesn't necessarily feel the best. Even though these spikes are pointy, they're not necessarily the most detailed. So it definitely wins the points for being most realistic of the bunch. But how do the other 3 stack up? Checking out version 3, not version 3, version 1. I was looking at version 3 when I was saying that for some reason. It kind of goes for the same idea in terms of what the 2014 was going for, except everything here is a much lighter color. And it kind of has like, and of course the hand falls off of me. The eyes are much more, how do I say this, human looking than his 2014 counterpart. The mouth is also a different story, being much more lighter in pink color. And even though it isn't necessarily painted all the way, I still like the way it overall looks. Especially the teeth. They're much more better painted on this figure than they are on the 2014 figure. And the dry brushing is a lot more better. And this could just be due to the mold and the CG model, but the spines here just look so much better. Sure, they're not as gummy plasticky. They feel really hard and sharp, but they just look so much better than the 2014 figure. And like, you know, I'll say this, they worked with what they had and they definitely made the most of it. Version 2 is kind of actually a mix of pretty much all 3 of the Godzillas, like version 3, version 1, and 2014, because we basically have the color scheme of, overall look of the color scheme of version 3 with the veins, and we have the mold of version 1, and we have like the dark kind of charcoal black gray of the 2014 figure, and it just looks so good. I just love this color scheme. Light blue, dark blue, light blue again. It's because I'm a blue fanatic, but like, look at that. On the gills too. Oh my goodness, it's seeping into the skin, just begging to be let out. Meanwhile, you have that nice curved tail, just getting ready to shoot out that atomic breath. Very shiny, very matte, kind of mildly glossy in color. And yeah, this figure definitely wins some points for this color scheme. And last but not least, we have version 3, which is definitely, in my opinion, the most unique in terms of color scheme. Every single thing on his body is pretty much a different color aside from charcoal gray. like you have like a red kind of black toasted look, almost like a piece of toast that you left in the toaster for too long. Even though it pops out automatically, say you set it in for too long. The tongue inside kind of looks like a banana, but that's understandable considering the fact that this area would be the most brightest inside the body, minus the dorsal fins here. By the way, these dorsal fins are just so well sculpted and painted. I just can't stop gushing over this. The veins too, just going in. The feet are really well done. The hands are really well done. The underbelly, the gills, the eyes especially, and the tail is probably one of my more favorite parts. Even though it kind of looks like they just put some tape, sprayed it, and then just ripped it off. I can understand why they did this. Like, this is actually a rather small area for them to paint. And they probably didn't have like that digital paints thing they usually do with some of their other figures. So this definitely wins some points as well. So, time for the scores. In last place, we have the 2014 figure, which it does have some really nice realistic looking paint, and a really nice looking sculpt to it. However, realism isn't always going to win because we're looking for something that's eye-popping, something that will immediately grab the person's attention. In third place, we have version 1, which version 1 NECA 2019. While it does follow more the same route as him, it tries desperately to be as eye-catching as it can be. I mean, there's not enough things that you can really make it so it's eye-catching. And while it was close, I'm honestly going to have to give second place to version 2 and then first place to version 1 because I don't know, when you want something eye-popping, I think red is going to be more eye-popping than blue is, simply because of the whole different color schemes. Like, yeah, you got a lot of blues, but you have like different colors like yellow, orange, and red aside from different variants of blue. Sure, there might be hints of purple, but those are just hints. This went all out on the color scheme. So, yes, last place, third place, second place, first place. Point goes to Burning Godzilla, version 3. Next, we're going to talk about posability, and I know some people are going to say, but Matthew, all of them share an equally amount of joints. You're right to an extent, but that's not necessarily what's happening here. Well, we might as well cover the 2014 figure. 2014 has 2 ball joints at the head and neck, hinged jaw, ball jointed shoulders, hinged and ball jointed elbows, ball jointed wrists, a ball jointed ab crunch, ball jointed hips, ball jointed and hinged knees, ball jointed foot, and 1, 2, 3, 4 joints of ball joints, and then the rest from here to what appears to be here is all bendy wire, and this is just pure rubber. So it's definitely articulated, but how does it stack up compared to its 2019 predecessors? Or not predecessors, let's just say 2019 successors. Version 1 here has kind of more or less the same thing. We have 2 joints at the head and neck. The jaw can open up on a hinge. The shoulder, not using this one because it pops out on me easily. That's my own fault, by the way. It's not a quality control issue. It can go in and out, forward and back. This one is on kind of the same joint, a ball joint and hinge joint. And this is where it kind of gets a little interesting, because last time it was just on a ball joint. Now it's actually on a hinge joint, which you definitely see on the 2014 figure. There's no hinge. There's a hinge on here now, which is definitely a welcome addition. The waist here is a lot more crunchable, movable. I'm not sure what the exact word is. We can go in and out, forward and back, rotate. The legs can pretty much do the same thing as the 2014 figure. Ball jointed legs with a hinge, even though mine are still quite stiff. I don't really move the knees too much, so that's why. and the ball jointed foot. And right here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. You'd think that there'd be a bendy wire, but no, there's actually 6 extra joints for a full ball jointed movement. So that means no more bendy wire tail, which in some people's heads, that's actually a really good thing. However, it isn't necessarily a good thing until you realize what's actually happening here. Both bendy wires and ball joints have their advantages and disadvantages. Ball joints can wear out over time and become loose. The bendy wires, if you treat them correctly, can hold a position, and even though they could possibly break or tear out of the rubber piece as a whole, that actually does require a bit of effort to do, especially on the 2014 tail, because let's be honest, this is made of a very thick rubber. So in terms of tail articulation, I hate to say this, but I think I might prefer his over his. I'm not really too sure. So now that I pretty much covered the 2019 and 2014 sculpts, you'd think there'd be no winner, right? Or 2014 would be the winner? Because I like the tail articulation more? Nope. In fact, one of the versions of 2019 take this role of being the winner, and this is version 3. Now, you might be wondering, but Matthew, he's the exact same mold as the other 2 versions. He can't possibly have an advantage over them. Well, you might be pleased to know this, but the plastic it's made of can really make a difference when it comes to posability. Not much people know about this. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, I think I showed this in my version 3 review, but take a look at this. Yeah, you can hear that. This is as far as you can bend the 2019 version 1's tail. Now, look at version 3. Okay, this is kind of a poor comparison, but what I'm trying to say is this makes it much more flexible than its hard plastic counterparts. So even though it's not as apparent, version 3's articulation completely surpasses anything of the other 3 because it's made of a more softer plastic. So in terms of the articulation department, we're going to give version 2. Keep in mind, I didn't look at version 2 because it's basically the same thing as version 1. And version 1, last place, a tie for last place, because their articulation, while it's good, it isn't necessarily as good as second place, 2014. And first place, 2019 version 1. So yes, tie for last place, second place, first place. Next round, accessories. And this is when we actually do have another clear winner. Now, you might know that NECA hasn't really been using accessories with its Godzilla for a few years. And 2014, being the very first release, certainly doesn't help its case. So it automatically loses, because it doesn't come with anything. But for King of the Monsters, they did something a little different. For 4 out of the 6 figures they released accessories with them. And these 4 figures are Mothra version 1, Mothra version 2, Rodan, and Godzilla version 2. Godzilla version 2 is the only monster vs. Godzilla in NECA's entire lineup to come with an accessory. Make that 2 for crying out loud. Version 2 comes with a beam effect and an impact base. The other 3 come with nothing, even despite him being an exclusive and him being made of translucent plastic. That isn't necessarily an accessory. That's more of a novelty. Something to say, hey, this is different than these 2 or these 3 because he's made of a translucent plastic. So yes, for accessories, he wins. These 3 are pretty much tied because they have nothing. And if anyone's going to make the excuse of them, their tails and the backdrops and the boxes they come up with, or came with, that would only tie them because this one comes with all that plus these 2. So the argument of tails being an accessory is out. And seeming as they're all the exact same size and pretty much the exact same price, $20 to $25 at retail when NECA was still producing Godzilla figures, that means we're going on to the final scores. Now, let's lay it out. 2014 and 2019 version 1 are tied with 0 points. Now, you might already know who the winner is, but version 2 comes in at second place with the win of accessories. And version 3 comes in with the sculpt and paint category and the overall posability category, making version 3 the definitive winner of this showdown. However, there is something I'd like to point out here. This is not meant to bash on anyone's opinion onto who they think is better. When you just pit these four at the same time, version 3 is simply the best one of these three. But there is something to point out. In my personal opinion, I still think he's my favorite out of all these guys. Yes, you heard that right. I still like this 2014 figure over any of these guys. And I think this is just mainly due to the fact that I've had him for so long and he's my favorite incarnation of Godzilla that I've just grown to like him. And I mean, the Angry Birds and Godzilla show, that's a proof of that. He's been in nearly every single episode to date, I think, of 300 of them. Yeah. So version 3 is the winner, but in my opinion, he's the winner. But of course, we can't go without mentioning him, because even though he didn't win anything, I still think he deserves some recognition. He gets bashed because of his eyes. But people don't know this, is that even though his eye placement can be a bit wonky, and it can look silly, that's what it sort of looked like in the movie. Here, I'll even put a picture up on screen. And at the end of the day, I think it just comes down to personal preference. If you like 2014, go with this one. If you want version 1, go with this one. Version 2, this one. Version 3, that one. You kind of get the idea. But which one is your favorite? It all matters to you at the end of the day. And if you want to pick one of these up, go right ahead. Even though it's going to be hard as heck, because these things were stopped being produced in, I think, summertime around there or something. But yes, this concludes my showdown. If you guys liked it, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out, everyone.